Okay. Mr. Maduro, your DOC number is 459556. You're here today. You've submitted an application for clemency requesting a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in East Baton Rouge Parish in August of 2002 to life for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. Maduro, is that information correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you answer Mr. Marabella, please?
Good morning, Mr. Maduro. My name is Tony Marabella. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir.
Let me see if I can find you. Mr. Maduro, how old are you, sir?
I am 44.
And how long have you been in prison?
Been in prison 21 years.
Okay. Do y'all see him on the screen?
Yes,
I do.
you have to swipe over.
Well,
Swipe to your left.
well,
My left?
No,
I see the. Okay, Mr. Maduro, can you speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. I got you
Yes, sir.
now. I'm sorry. Thank you. Mr. Maduro, how old are you, sir?
I am 44.
And how long have you been in prison?
21 years.
Okay.
And a couple of months.
And you're currently located right now at the Louisiana Police Barracks?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Maduro, tell me how you got involved in transporting drugs from South America to the United States. Tell me about this crime and this killing that you committed.
Well, not long after I moved from Puerto Rico to Houston, Texas to live with my uncle and his family, when I was about 19 years old, I began to work at a place where my uncle found me a job, first job. And I met this guy from Colombia and who was involved in a drug smuggling operation. And I made the terrible decision to get involved with him in recruiting guys to smuggle drugs. In the process, I met my co-defendant, Torres Echols, who was also working at the same place where we worked, where I met the Colombian guy. And through him, I met Troy Taggart. And we recruited Troy to smuggle drugs. And he did it a couple of times. The first time it went well. The second time he did it, he planned to steal some of the drugs. He stole some of the drugs and moved out from Houston, Texas to his hometown in Baton Rouge. And upon knowing the fact, I was responsible for the drugs that he had stolen. So I came to Louisiana with my co-defendant, Torres Echols, who knew him and knew where he was staying. And I came with a reason to convince him to return the drugs and to get the drugs back so that we can get him back to the person who owns the drugs. And while being there, we went inside. I mean, he was welcoming. He told me that he was not trying to avoid us, that he was going through some problems, and that he had made a recent trip to Mexico. And in the conversation, I asked him, well, show me your passport that you went to Mexico, where I could see that it's been stamped. And he told me, give me a few minutes. He went to a back room inside the house. He came back a few minutes later. He didn't have his passport. He didn't show me the passport. He told us, let's go back outside. We went outside. We continued to talk about the missing drugs. The conversation got kind of heated. It got to the point where it got between me and him got into a heated conversation. I felt in my heart that he reached for his waistline. I instinctively pulled my gun and shot him multiple times. My intentions were never to shoot Troy. That was not the reason why I came to him. And
But you went there with a loaded weapon.
Yes, sir.
How long were you involved in this drug smuggling operation?
Maybe a year and a half.
And how old were you at the time when you started?
At the time, I was 21, maybe 20, 21.
You went to trial and were found guilty?
Yes, sir. I was found guilty of second degree.
Now let's talk a little bit about what you've done since you've been in prison. What is your educational background?
My educational background, I earned an associate's degree and a bachelor's.
Prior to, well, let me clarify my question. Before coming to prison, how far had you gone in school?
I finished my GED, got a GED, and I did a couple of semesters at Houston Community College.
Okay. And since you've been in prison, tell me now what you've done.
So since I've been in prison from the time I went in and took responsibility for what I've done and accepted what I've done, I came inside and I said, I have to do something about it where I can maybe make amends wherever I can make it. I know I have to do something about it and change something where I can, that will help me become a better person, that will maybe give back in some way or another. And I became a tutor in the GED program. And from there, I started taking the courses in anger management, substance abuse, case rage, living in balance 1 and 2. I began to seek redemption and began to seek and make amends in some way or another. And I began to get into the programs, into the faith-based programs, where it led to me going into the Bible college, where I graduated with an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree in Christian ministry. I went so far, became the Spanish interpreter in Angola, where I was able to help the Latino community to communicate with the medical staff, with the prison population, and with the legal programs under the disciplinary board court proceedings. I also I was able and had the privilege to found a club, a Hispanic Advancement Community Club, where I became the first president of that club.
Mr. Maduro, I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, okay? I was mainly concerned in your education right now. You got a degree. Did you get a degree from the seminary?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what are you doing with that degree while you've been in prison?
So when I went in Bible college, I went for myself in the sense of seeking a better understanding of the belief of the Christian ministry. I didn't know I was going to also receive an education where I was going to be equipped to be able to help other people, particularly the Hispanic community that was coming to Angola at the time, that didn't know English or had trouble with their language. And I was able to get involved with them and be able to minister to them. We have Bible studies together in Spanish and English. We help in different programs when it came to the substance abuse programs, to give it in Spanish and English, the anger management in Spanish and English. Was able to give them courses in English as a second language and breaking the language barriers of communication. So I used my degree to be able to minister to them, particularly the Hispanic community.
Tell me about your work with the Point Lookout Project. Tell me what that is and tell me what you've done with that.
Yes, sir. In the Point Lookout Project, I got involved in the Point Lookout Project by becoming a staff member of the Angolite office, where Kerry Myers, who is here today, gave me the opportunity to become part of a group of guys who became staff writers with the Prison News magazine. And through there, we deal with the Point Lookout Project, where we help to organize and put together the program for the inmates who die in prison and have no way for the family members to come get them where they can have a proper burial outside of Angola. So we buried him in Angola at the Point Lookout Cemetery, and with that we give him a proper funeral. And I was privileged to help in that area. We set up the organization of the funeral from the chapel to the ministers to the pallbearers and to bringing him to the cemetery so we can give him a proper funeral. I'm glad, I was glad to and proud of being part of that group. It taught me a lot of the value of life. I always have in mind and think about what I've done, and it helped me through that process to keep that in mind, that what I have done, as much as I would like to go back in time and never again, and give that back or bring Troy back. It's something that it stays in my heart all the time, every day, and that program helped me to be where I am now, and because I'm keeping in mind what I have done in the past.
Tell me a little bit about some of the other programs you've taken. You talked about Alcoholics Anonymous. You talked about substance abuse. What is your personal drug history? Have you ever used drugs?
Yes, sir.
What kind of drugs do you use? Had you used in the past?
Marijuana, sir. I started smoking marijuana around 14 or 15 years old. It was a big problem for me at that age. It was a problem for me in school. It was a problem for me at home, with my family, with my parents. It was one of the main reasons why my family decided to send me to Houston, Texas with my uncle, because of those reasons. And I tell you, I learned this through the programs that was a problem for me, and I will always live with that, knowing that I am in a process of recovery, and I live a life of recovery because of it, and it's gonna stay with me. And I will always look at it, wherever I am, whether it's here or out there. This is something that it will always be with me, and I will look at it as in a life of recovery.
Did you ever progress to anything beyond marijuana?
No, sir.
And what were you bringing into the country from South America? What drugs?
Heroin.
Tell me what heroin does tell me what you've learned about what you were doing and how it affected the people you were transporting these drugs to, and ultimately getting to the people who were using these drugs.
And that's one thing that at the time, I didn't even consider any of that. I didn't even consider how much I hurt the people that was affected by the drugs that came in. At the time, I had no idea with how I affected them, my family, the Troy Thacker family. And through the programs, I was able to learn and understand and recognize the damage I have done with the drugs that were coming in. There were so many people that were affected by that. And I do not want to ever again do something like that again. It is because of that I look back and I say I need to keep that in mind, and it helps me to become the person I am today.
Tell me a little bit about the work you've done while you've been in prison. What sort of jobs have you had?
So from the beginning, I was the tutor, certified tutor with the GED program, and I got involved in helping students, mostly the Hispanic students that were coming through the program that were trying to obtain their GED. It began there. Then from there, as I moved to the Bible college and became an inmate minister, I was able to minister to others. It was also a job. And I became the Spanish interpreter under the legal department program, where I was able to interpret for the Hispanic community in many different ways, with the medical staff, with the disciplinary board, court proceeding. Then, thanks to Kerry Myers, who at the time was the editor of the Angolite magazine, he brought me in as a staff writer, and I worked my way up to become the editor of the magazine. And I also was able to contribute back to the community, to the prison community, by becoming the president of the Hispanic Advancement Community Club. And we were able to provide the Hispanic community with so many needs that otherwise they would have not gotten, and but including classes and programs that the administration helped us to create and to provide to the Hispanic community. And so from there, working at the Angolite, that's where the Point Lookout project came about too, which was also as a job, but at the same time, this is mostly voluntary. And after becoming the editor of the magazine, when Kerry Myers went home, I had the opportunity to come to the Louisiana police barracks. And when I came here, I worked at a couple of places.
When did you first come to the Louisiana Police Barracks?
I came to Louisiana Police Barracks in 2017.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. Tell me what you did once you got there.
Yes, sir. And when I got to the police barracks, they gave me my first job at the headquarters, Department of Public Safety, where I worked in facility service, doing general maintenance, housekeeping, groundskeeping, landscaping, and anything that they needed to do in the buildings. And from there, they moved me to another job here in Just Tech facility that is called the SDC. It's more like a hotel type of place where they do trainings, and the law enforcement trains, and they stay in those areas. So I was able to be there doing housekeeping before they brought me to the governor's mansion, and where I'm currently a butler for First Family.
How long have you been at the governor's mansion?
So I've been housed and living at the governor's mansion for the last 2 years due to the COVID and the pandemic. I've been housed there.
Now, you've been in prison, I think you told me 21 years?
Yes, sir. 21 years and a couple of months.
How many write-ups have you had, or how many disciplinary actions have you had since you've been there?
So, Mr. Marabella, I have 0 write-ups.
None at all?
Not at all, no, sir.
What do you think? How do you think you were changed? How are you different than the man that came to prison 21 years ago?
Well, for one thing, it was I felt like I have to almost die again so I can live, so I can now become a new person, so I can be transformed, so that I can break everything down, everything I have, so that I can start over, and so I can start to in some way or another give back. So I know I took someone's life, and I took Troy's life, and I am forever sorry for that. And with that in my heart and with that in my mind, I just want to be a better person. I want to, that's why I got involved into all the programs that the Department of Corrections I have to offer. If it wasn't for those programs, I don't think I would be here today, because through those programs, I was able to become the person I am today.
Madam Chairman, I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you for answering my questions, Mr. Maduro.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. I don't see that there are any other questions on the board, so I'd ask staff to introduce the guests who indicated they'd like to speak today.
Okay, first we're going to hear from Ms. Myrna Rivera, Mr. Maduro's mom.
Good morning. My name is Mirna Rivera, and I am Jamie's mother. Never in my life, as a mother, I thought that I was going to be in front of a pardons board or a victim's family to ask mercy for any of my children. And here I am, trying to express myself the best as I can in my second language. First, it is important for us to express that it is not our intention to come here before you to underestimate in any way the victim's family sorrows during all these years. We are conscious that neither our repentance nor the victim's family forgiveness will ever make these events disappear from our lives. And being a prosecutor at that time, I could anticipate the painful experiences we were all about to go through. And we returned back home to Puerto Rico after Jamie was sentenced. We could not stop asking ourselves what was going to happen to him. Every day I asked myself what we could do for him since we were so far away. Well, we did the most powerful thing we could. We got down on our knees and prayed to our Lord to guide him and make him a person of good. Our Lord answered our prayers. Inside prison, Jaime recognized that he did wrong, that he caused unbearable pain, and that there was no one else to blame but himself. Since early in his incarceration, Jamie made the decisions to choose a different path in his life. He began tutoring other inmates. He worked as an interpreter for the Spanish-speaking inmates. He became a trustee. He worked as a staff writer for the Angola and later became the editor of the magazine. He completed his bachelor's degree in the New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary. He got transferred to the state police barracks and is now working at the governor's mansion. During all these years of his incarceration, Jamie's family members have been constantly present in his life, many of whom are here with me today. We travel to Louisiana at least twice a year. We talk regularly over the phone every week. We write to each other, and we participated in many special activities.
Miss Rivera, I'm sorry, can you please complete your statement for us?
Yes.
Thank you.
If Jaime is given a second chance to come back home to Puerto Rico, he will continue to have all our support. And at home, Jaime has his own bedroom, a list of work to do, and a church to go to. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Richard Thompson, a friend. You need to unmute your mic, Mr. Thompson. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is my first appearance before this board. And I do not come here because I once served as the Deputy Secretary of Public Safety and Corrections in Louisiana. I come here as an educator, a businessman, and owner of businesses in a farm in Puerto Rico, and as a friend of Jamie. I first met Jamie several years ago in Angola prison. I was with Charles D. Gravel researching information on Billy Cannon to be published in the book, The Long, Long Run. We interviewed Cannon and dozens of inmates that Billy Cannon had served. One of those inmates was Carrie Myers, and another was the assistant editor of the Angolite named Jamie Maduro. When I met Jamie that day, I was so impressed with his honesty, his dignity, and character. I knew no matter what he had done in his younger years, this young man had exceedingly rich values. And I would try to visit him every time I went to Angola. And his positive outlook was an encouragement to me personally. I knew his values. He must have been raised in a good family. And while living in Puerto Rico, I met his mother and father. I met his brother and sister, I even met his grandmother from Puerto Rico. And my thoughts of this young man was he had to be raised in a good family, and that was true. His father is an outstanding businessman in San Juan. His mom, an attorney that served in my region as a district attorney. His brother and sister, outstanding, productive citizens. As the president of Ridgeport Technical College in Puerto Rico, we have graduated many fine vocational achievers. One of those was an inmate from Louisiana prisons. I knew he had the potentials just as I know Jamie does. And I offered him a scholarship, but he had to get permission from Louisiana. The Interstate Compact provided that partnership between Louisiana and Puerto Rico. And to be honest, my main concern was, would Puerto Rico do their parole and probation duties? I knew Louisiana would, but Puerto Rico went beyond my expectations and they did a tremendous job. If this system will allow a way for Jamie to move from Angola to the state police barracks to now serving in the governor's mansion, to finally a sense of freedom, Jamie, with permission and the assistance of the Interstate Compact, would go home to Puerto Rico and to his family, where a home, a career, and a new beginning awaits him. If he could go back, if he cannot go back to Puerto Rico for any reason, I go on the record to say he's welcome to live in my home with my family, and I'll put him to work. Again, I've never appeared before this board, but in my heart, I know that you would not be disappointed to give this young man a new start. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next, we'll hear from Carrie Myers from Louisiana Parole Project.
Good morning, Carrie Myers, Deputy Director of Louisiana Parole Project. I'm not going to repeat all of Jamie's accomplishments. You've already heard that. I will tell you two things. Parole Project is extremely supportive of Jamie and will provide him any support should he become parole eligible through that process and any transition programming that he needs. Second, Jamie is like a little brother to me. I got to know him extremely well. When I hired him to the Angolite, I hired him simply because of his character, because of the things that I had watched him do, because of the extraordinary generosity and dedication to helping other people. Jamie learned, while English is his second language, Jamie learned to write and became an excellent writer, which was difficult because he had to actually think in English to write in English, he was dedicated to doing that. So when Jamie sets his mind to doing something productive, Jamie does it well. His participation in the programs like Point Lookout Project, I really didn't have to ask. He was immediately there to volunteer and became an important part of that program, which still means a lot to me. I have never seen anyone in the 27 years that I was in Angola have as much remorse, truly understanding his actions and the effect that it had, not only on the victim's family, his own family, himself, but to make it his mission to be a better person every day, because he lives with it every day. And I can tell you that I've through everything that I've ever known with Jamie, and I've continued to stay in contact with him, to visit him. I know that this person, who he is today, he made some extraordinarily poor choices when he was younger. And as he has told me, he thought that it would be easy, that life, he got seduced into it. That it would be glamorous. He thought he could do something without even getting his hands dirty. And he knows that that's absolutely impossible. There's no way you can be in that life and not have dirty hands. And he knows that. And it's something he would never, again, he could live in my house. That's how much I think of Jamie. I know that Jamie, the person he is today, is so far removed from the person he was when he was 20, 21 years old. And so I've just asked this board to consider Jamie, consider his accomplishments, consider the character, and to offer him some hope. So I hope this board will take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Now we'll hear from the opposition side. We're going to start with Ms. Annette Thomas, victim's family, who will be speaking in opposition.
You can hear me? Hi, my name is Annette. I am Troy Thagard's sister. You know, we as a family still living this horrible tragedy every day. I've heard from Jamie. I've heard from his family. And y'all all say that y'all sorry, but no one has lived our shoes. No one has felt what we felt that day, September 8, 2000, when we got that phone call because of what Jamie's act did. Our family has a hole in our heart that we can never repair. You know, he says that he's done all these good things and everybody said that he can come live with them. But my brother did not have that opportunity to do that. My brother did not have that opportunity. He left 2 kids here. They had to be raised with single parents. Us as family had to step up and do the job that he couldn't do because he wasn't here. You know, that's all good and dandy that he did all that, but because he went to jail, he changed his life. Why he couldn't change his life while he was already out there, my brother could be here today to do all the good things that Jamie has done. You know, we have God in our family too, as his family has said. We were raised up with God in our family. My brother and I went to church every Sunday. We went to Sunday school. We did everything. Yes, as you grow up, you go and you do wrong things in your young life. But that does not take away the way he took my brother's life. He shot him 8 times. 8 times. And the police officer told us that he didn't suffer. There is no way that he was shot 8 times that he did not suffer. Jamie came all the way from Houston. He had to cross another state to come and kill my brother. Jamie didn't know anything about Baton Rouge. His accomplice, which is the person that we were raised up with, brought Jamie here to shoot my brother. No one knows the conversation that him and Jamie had. No one knows that conversation. We can only go by what Jamie says. He says he was defending his life. There was no gun. There was nothing there to say that my brother tried to harm him. There was nothing. And like I said in my letter, it's like a dream. I'm still living this dream every day. I get up every morning and I know I cannot pick up that phone and call my brother. You can come here to Baton Rouge and visit Jamie. I can't go there. Know where I go? I go to Winfield Funeral Home to the gravesite and visit my brother on holidays, his birthday. That's how I visit him. And he would never, ever pick up that phone and call me and say, Ned, how I'm doing. So y'all can sit there and say Jamie changed his life. Jamie did this, Jamie did that, because he had to. He was locked up in Angola. Anybody who goes to jail tries to change themselves and make themselves better. But the day, I still can remember the day I was in court and Jamie lawyer decided not to let my mother sit in court because they thought her feelings would make the jurors change their mind. My mother could not sit there and listen to the testimony. And when the testimony came down and when the judgment came down, Jamie did not show any remorse to our family. He talking about he do make amends to our family. He has not done anything to us, has not. And I know he probably cannot contact us, but I just not feel in my heart that he had any remorse.
Ms.
He
Thomas,
what he did.
excuse me.
And I have to let my brother speak now
Can we get
because
to the
I know
point?
we only have a certain amount of time.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from Derek Douglas, also victim family member. Mr. Douglas? Okay, it appears their screen has frozen. So we're going to go next to Patrice Moore, who will be speaking also in opposition.
Good morning. My name is Patrice Baggert Moore. I was married to Troy at the time, in which we had a daughter. I have a daughter. And as Annette has said, on that day, when we received the phone call, it was like it was a dream. Yes, like Annette has also said, pretty much anyone that goes to prison, for the most part, they find God, they do everything to try to change their life, but that does not take into account the things that they have done to affect another family by murdering someone's family member. He did not take that into consideration when he drove 4 hours from Houston, Texas to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to kill a little girl's father. This little girl was only 5 years old at the time. I had to raise her as a single mom. She became a teenager, went to prom, graduated from high school, and guess who wasn't there? Her father was not there. She's had to birth her firstborn, his grandson, and guess who wasn't there? Troy was not there. So this is what we've had to deal with for going on 22 years. Jamie has been in prison. He says prison for 21 years, but then he's turned over his life. He's at the police barracks. He's staying at the governor's mansion. Guess who isn't?
That's right.
Troy Thagard isn't. You all have the opportunity as his family to give him calls and talk to him. Do you know what we would give in order to have that opportunity to just give him a phone call? And we can't. So on behalf of Troy Jason Thagard's family, we ask that you take this into consideration and not let it be a slap in our face that someone could just serve 21 years on a life sentence and say that you've done good. In Troy Jason Thagard's life, it didn't matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Now we're going to try to hear from Mr. Derek Douglas again.
Hello. Can you guys hear me? Okay. But that home. Can you guys hear me? Yeah. I'm assuming they can. All right. That home that Jamie came to is my grandmother's home where he killed my brother at. That's the same home all of us grew up in. That's the same home all of us had our first Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, celebration. That was our family home. My poor mother, she couldn't even participate in this because she's ill, and this would just break her heart. We had to we tried to find ways to get over this, but we just can't. We actually have to we actually sold our family home to try to get past this, but we can't. His name come up in so many places. Jamie's accomplice stayed 2 houses down from where I grew up, where we grew up at. You know, and like Mr. Myers said earlier, you know, when Jamie put his mind to anything, he could do it. And that's what he did on September 8th. He drove his behind to Baton Rouge, Louisiana from Houston and shot my brother over eight times. So I do believe that he can do anything he put his mind through. And I believe right now, the best place for Jamie is where he is right now in prison. You know, he's missed weddings. He's missed my college graduation, my sister's graduation, my niece's graduation, grandkids, countless birthdays, my nieces and nephews, they've graduated from college and moved on. And we are a tight-knit family. And Troy's name comes up just like you walk in a building and say good morning everywhere we go. Oh, we sure miss Troy. Oh, remember Troy used to do this. Remember he used to cook this. Maybe he used to shoot ball like this. Maybe remember he told that joke. It's not a day that goes by that a friend or family member or neighbor don't mention my brother's name when he come in contact with one of our family members. So, you know, when you do something wrong, of course you're gonna try to do better. Just like any 5-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old get caught doing something silly, they get caught, they seek refuge, they seek to try to do better. And in my opinion, that's what Jamie is right now. And you know, if it took him killing my brother to be a better person, that's where he should stay, because that's probably the only place where he probably will do fine, in my opinion. Because our family is hurting. You know, I wake up every day. I pass by that funeral home, the place where my brother's buried every day. I hit the horn, or if I have time, I go by there and talk to him. And that's all I have. I tell my 2 daughters, that's 12 and 13, about their uncle. And all they can see is a picture or hear a funny story. And I just don't think it's fair that a man could come across state lines and kill an unarmed man. And then here it is 21 years later, he's the best thing since sliced bread. Yeah, I would be too if I was a killer in Angola. I'd probably be the best thing since sliced bread too. I guess everyone on this call would like me to stay at their house as well, because I'd be trying to do whatever I could to get out of there as well. But you know what? My brother can't do whatever he can to get out of that ground and come here and hug me, kiss his wife, kiss his nieces and nephews. So I believe that's where he should stay, and that's exactly where he belongs. We built that place up the road in Angola for a reason. For killers, murderers, and rapists. And that's where he belongs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Next, we'll hear from Tracy Barbera from the East Baton Rouge DA's office.
Good morning. I was the trial attorney who handled this case, and I remember having many, many conversations with Tommy D'Amico about Mr. Maduro and his family. I remember just being very moved when I found out his mother was a prosecutor at the time. I have a son who's just a few years younger than Mr. Maduro. And when I saw this was coming up on the clemency docket, it brought back the trial and the Thagard family and the facts of the case. Mr. Maduro just acknowledged to you he was involved in the heroin trafficking for about 1.5 years. And if memory serves me correctly, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Texas declined to institute charges against him due to the fact he was convicted and received a life sentence here in Louisiana. I communicated with Mr. Nordyke and Mr. Myers last week, and I assured them that I would think long and hard about this case before speaking to the members of the board this morning. And I must admit that I was not shocked by anything I read in their emails to me or by anything that was contained in the clemency investigation. I was shocked when I learned about Mr. Maduro's background and the conduct that he engaged in back in 2000. I am not shocked by the conduct he has not engaged in at Angola, and I'm not shocked by the conduct he has engaged in. He is without doubt, as all of you have heard, he is the model prisoner. He would not be at the governor's mansion right now if he were not. If he had been convicted of manslaughter, he still would not be eligible for parole. He has only served 21 years. Having sat through many hearings over the past year in particular with the board, I know the things that y'all look for, and I know what is important to you. And I know that you are also very aware of accountability and whether or not someone has served enough time for what they have done. I will tell the members of the Thagard family that in my heart, I believe that one day Mr. Maduro will be released from the Department of Corrections. And that is just based upon what I've seen and what I've observed. I have to be honest and tell you, I do not think he has served enough time. Do I think a life sentence is justified in this case? Absolutely. He received a very fair trial. He was represented by one of the finest defense attorneys in East Baton Rouge Parish, even in the state of Louisiana. But I cannot let go of the fact that this is a heroin trafficking death. And as Mr. Marabella said, he did come to Louisiana with a loaded gun. He and Torres, and there was all kinds of allegations about how many drugs he came back to, Mr. Thagard came back to the country with, how many he turned over, if he had kept some for personal gain. But again, I do not think he has served enough time when you take all of the circumstances into consideration. I would ask that if the members of the board do decide to recommend clemency to the governor, that you please not recommend immediate parole eligibility, that you give the Thagard family time to digest your decision and let them deal with the fact that he will be released. Again, I think a life sentence is completely justified based upon the case. I understand this is a very difficult decision for you as members of the board. I do not envy your position today. And I just ask that you remember the impact that this has had on the Thagard family when you make your decision this morning. And we respect your decision, whatever it may be. And thank you.
Before we, I think that's everybody, but before we turn it over to Mr. Nordyke, I see Mr. Roche has a comment or question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can we get remarks and comments from Ms. Prejean?
Yes, sir. You ready for that? Okay. Ms. Prejean, is there any comments you have?
Yes, thank you. Jaime has been at the barracks for 4 years. 2 of that he's been at the governor's mansion. He has 0 write-ups. I'll let Mr. Nordyke fill you in on his accomplishments, because I'm sure you've heard he's got many. But I'd like to say this about Jaime's character. He has a very pleasant attitude. He performs any task asked of him without any complaints. He's quiet, he's very respectful, and he's a leader among our population.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Nordyke, would you like Jamie to make his statement first?
I would.
Okay.
I'll go last.
Okay. Jamie, is there a statement you'd like to make to the board before Mr. Nordyke makes his presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I want to say I understand that this hearing is not only about me. It is as much more for the Troy Thagard family, who who has had to endure and suffer the loss of Troy, and everything because of what I did to him. And for that, I am forever sorry. What happened that night and what happened to Troy is always in my heart and is present with me every single day. And no matter where I am, whether I am here, whether I am with the Parole Project or living in Puerto Rico, I will live with this for the rest of my life. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Mr. Nordike.
I'm a little torn. I normally at this point would discuss in fairly bullet point brief fashion all of his accomplishments, but I think most of those have been well discussed in this hearing. So I may want to do a couple of other things or talk about a couple of other things. This is a forward-looking process. The whole pardon process, a forward-looking process. What has the person done since they went to prison? And in this case, I've done hundreds of these cases. I don't think I have ever seen anybody whose entire body of work is as accomplished and as complete and is as well-meaning as what has happened in this case. Jamie Maduro has done everything asked of him from day one. No write-ups whatsoever. He's educated himself. He's taken every program that he can. I count no less than 4 substance abuse courses, and I heard him today talk in terms of recovery being a day-to-day process, and that he's dedicated to that. All 3 speakers would allow him to live with them, which is, I've never heard that before. Not all 3. His entire trajectory is up. So let me turn to what Ms. Barbera said. I did provide her with our brief and our package of accomplishments. And I would just point out to the board that this governor does not sign pardons outside that were parole eligibility outside the term of his office. So if immediate parole eligibility is not going to be a consideration, I would ask the board to consider that any relief that provides parole eligibility outside, January 2024, late 2023, would not be something this governor would consider based on his current approach to this. So I would, in conclusion, ask for immediate parole eligibility, and I would ask for commutation for Jamie Maduro. I don't think I've ever represented anybody whose entire body of work is as good as this man's. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nordike. And I think that concludes our presentations. Is the board prepared to vote? Mr. Mirabella?
Madam Chairman, I would ask that we be allowed to go into executive session to discuss confidential matters.
We have a motion, and Mr. Roche, you're muted.
And I second the motion.
Is there any objection? None. Ms. Jackson? Okay, it's a unanimous vote for executive session. So folks, we'll be in executive session for just a few moments to discuss confidential matters. Stand by, we'll be right back.
I'll fast forward through the executive session. It ran a little under 6 minutes. What do you think they're going to do? We'll unpack it at the end. Unfortunately, I don't have any information to share with you, so it's really going to be just more the how I felt about it type of unpacking this time. But let's jump in.
There we are. Okay, I think everybody's back in, so we'll be back in regular session, and the board is prepared to vote. We'll start with Mr. Marabella.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. First off, I would like to thank those who have spoken today, especially the victim's family, for the courage it took them to come here to this hearing to talk. I can't say that I understand your grief, but I do appreciate your being here today. And I do understand your pain. I've not been in your position, and that's why I say I can't understand your grief. I can't imagine how painful that is to have lost your brother, your husband, and your sister. So thank you very much for the input that you put in. And what you've had to say today has certainly resonated with all of the board members, certainly myself. In looking, Mr. Maduro, in looking at your history, you obviously have significant victim opposition. You have law enforcement opposition. Ms. Barbera, I have known for a long, long time. I have absolute faith and trust in her beliefs and her thoughts. And I think what she said today likewise resonated with me. And I appreciate her comments. Looking at who you are today, as opposed to the man who committed this crime that we've been talking about. You have been evaluated as a low risk. You have been described by many as a model prisoner. You have 0 write-ups. The community service work that you have done to your fellow inmates is remarkable. As a Hispanic, a Spanish-speaking person, you have helped out countless inmates. I've looked at all of the things that you have been able to accomplish. You are a trusted prisoner. You've been at the Louisiana State Police Barracks. You're at the governor's mansion now. You have worked very hard on your education. You graduated from the New Orleans Baptist Seminary there. And you've had excellent comments from the staff. Taking all of those things into consideration, it would be my vote today to recommend to the governor that he commute your sentence to 99 years and make you parole eligible after serving 23 years in prison. That would be my vote. I'm 1 of 4, so good luck to you, Mr. Maduro.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Ms. Jackson.
Mr. Maduro, I echo all the comments of my colleague, Judge Marabella. I've only been on this board a short amount of time, but I've seen a lot of inmates in your situation. But I haven't seen a lot of inmates that have done as much as you've done. Not just exterior stuff, but internal stuff. And I was a judge for 28 years before coming on this board. And so I've had the opportunity to listen to thousands of offenders. And I like to believe that I have gained the ability to discern who's genuine and who is not. I'm not a naive person. And I know that people say things because they think it's what will help them. But sometimes you can also discern genuine remorse and genuine acceptance of responsibility. And I believe in your case that that's true. These cases are always so painful, so very painful, because nothing that this board will do or not do will ever replace the life that's been taken. And it's going to always be painful for them, and they're always going to have that void, that emptiness in their hearts and at the table and at those moments in their lives. And I understand that. But my responsibility and my task is to look at you as a person that you are today. And if our jobs have any validity, any value, if we don't consider you favorably, then who? Then who? There would never be an inmate ever who has committed a murder that would ever be released if we don't take into consideration the transformation that's taken place in your life. And I wish, as Mr. Douglas had said, that every inmate incarcerated did what you do what you did, but they don't. They absolutely do not. And what you've done is extraordinary. To not have had a single write-up in 21 years is extraordinary. And if every inmate were like you, then our criminal justice system would be a model of success. But it's not. Everybody doesn't do what you do. Everybody doesn't take responsibility. Everybody doesn't feel the weight of their crime, but you do. And so, because our job is to assess who you are now and not judge you simply by that act that brought you here, my vote today would have to be to concur with my colleague, Mr. Marabella, to recommend to the governor a commutation of sentence to 99 years with a parole eligibility after having served 23 years. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Maduro, first of all, I'd like to reach out to Mr. Douglas, the brother of the victim, his sister, and his wife, Ms. Thagard Moore. I want to tell you that I appreciate your appearance. It was difficult this morning. You must have relived this every second since you got the notice of this hearing. And it was very courageous of you to appear. And as Mrs. Jackson said, our responsibility is to see whether or not this offender has done everything he can do to rehabilitate himself. And while victim opposition and law enforcement opposition plays an important role in this process, the ultimate thing that we're looking for is rehabilitation. Mr. Maduro started from the beginning. He has no disciplinary write-ups. Oftentimes, when an offender first gets to Louisiana State Penitentiary, he has a rough transition period where he has a lot of write-ups. But evidently, Mr. Maduro had made up his mind that he would do everything he could to rehabilitate himself. He just did it in a much shorter time than the average offender. His community service to the Part Lookout Project, which is one of my things I look for when I read a report. When an individual gives service to fellow inmates to make sure that he has a respectable burial when the family is not available. Then he was the assistant editor and editor of the Angola, which is one of the most prestigious positions. And I know Mr. Kerry Myers, And he would not have selected Mr. Maduro if he didn't have the character in which to manage the publishing of a award-winning magazine. So based upon no disciplinary write-ups, positive remarks from the staff at the State Police Barracks, good family support, and excellent programs, my vote is to commute his sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after serving 23 years.
Thank you, Mr. O'Shea. Jamie, I concur with everything that my colleagues have said. I'm not going to repeat it. I do appreciate the very hard work that you did, and you started right away. I want to thank the Fagerty and the Rivera and Maduro families for participating today. It's very meaningful to the process. My vote today is the same as my colleagues. My vote would be to recommend commutation of sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after having served 23 years. So you've received a unanimous vote, and we will make that recommendation on your behalf to Governor Edwards. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Lamar.
Thank you.
I think that concludes our business at the State Police Barracks. So we will conclude the proceedings there this morning. Thanks, Ms. Prejean.
Right. So how do we unpack this? I want to start by saying that we are going to jump into the parole hearing, which takes place because remember the governor had to commute it and then had to have this parole hearing. So the parole hearing takes place 8/16/2022, and we're going to watch that. And it's not a typical parole hearing. The family shows back up, Tracy shows back up, so the opposition is still there. So we can go see what happens. I mean, this is, I'm just so happy that what we had was really the I guess the creme de la creme, if you want to call it, of what I think we've seen in Louisiana. We have Tracy Barbera, who is my favorite ADA. She always just seems to know exactly what to say, how to say it. She's just great. And then you have on the opposite side, you have Keith Nordyke, who I think is the most professional, well-spoken attorney that we see. I mean, he just seems to really know what to say as well. And I think they both have a great mutual respect for each other. It's amazing that Tracy also prosecuted the case. You have from the family side that his mother was an ADA. You have the Speaker Ritchie in support, who worked in the Department of Corrections, Louisiana, if I remember correctly. So it was just, and to have, but you had both sides. It was to have no write-ups, to be in Angola for that long. That is remarkable. I mean, we see it only with those who are, I think, who are really harmed children, but we've never seen it for someone who is a dealer who had a homicide in this type of event. It's just so unnatural, like they pointed out. It really never does cease to amaze me. I mean, think about it. It's you get into Angola, and you would think that someone's going to immediately do something where you're going to have to, defend yourself. Get a write up, or you only need one corrections officer to just have a bad day and give you a write up. It's so difficult to understand how it's even possible. I wish so much that I had details. What I did pick up on was where Tracy didn't seem to deny any of the aspects of how the crime went down. She never accused him of going there to assassinate him. She even brought up the fact that he may have stolen the product that he had brought in, which, it's which is definitely says something, right? We have seen many horrible cases, and people who have done so much far worse, where I'm just screaming off the rooftops at the idea that they could even have a chance of getting an early commutation or commutation at all. It's just different to me. And I know that there are many of you that are going to be yelling at the screen, Bandy, you can't, but it is just different, the nature of it. It's organized crime that they're both involved in, and one seems to have done something that would have drastic consequences. It doesn't make it okay. It doesn't, but I do think it does change it in the big picture of things. And now the question, it also, we oftentimes hear in cases like this, if you're going to go there to kill someone, they're not necessarily shot 5 times. It's more done like execution style. It sends more of a message, right? But of course, we don't, without any of the details, we really don't know what happened. Do you just take his word for it that he thought that he was going for a weapon? Or did he go there, realize that he wasn't going to get his stuff back, and in a temper or rage, that does make a difference to me. Now, if he had put him on the ground on his knees and put one in him, it would, in my opinion, that makes a big difference, versus a very big difference versus hearing that maybe he thought he was going for a weapon. It's just 2 different kind of people. But this was a tough one for me. Again, just kind of heard everything that we needed to hear by the experts. Of course, we had the relative told to stop talking early, but we also had the mother, the 88, that was told to stop talking. So at least that happened. But I hate it. I just can't stand when someone's told to wrap it up, to stop talking. They've waited more than 2 decades to say something. Let them have an extra minute or 2. But anyways, I'll stop now. We'll go into the parole hearing. Like I said, this is not a typical post-commutation parole hearing, and Miss Bonnie Jackson does get into the weeds a little bit on the questioning. So we'll get more information, and hopefully enough information. I'm not sure. I haven't listened to the whole thing. I just saw Miss Jackson, and I wanted to know if she would do questioning. It was Miss Renata's case, but Miss Jackson does ask some questions and poke around. So let's jump into this hearing and meet up at the end of it.
Yes, ma'am.
So since your clemency hearing, has anything changed? Have
No,
you
ma'am.
participated in any additional programming opportunities?
No, ma'am. I'm still staying at the governor's mansion. So I'm still.
Had no disciplinary issues either?
No, ma'am.
Why do you think we ought to vote favorably for you today?
Well, ma'am, from the beginning of my incarceration, I have worked hard to make amends in all the areas of my life that I need to make amends, and by getting involved in all the programs that I needed to rehabilitate myself and be a better person. And if given the opportunity to make parole today, I plan to continue to be the best person I can be.
Give us an example. You say you try to make amends in all areas of your life. Give us an example.
So from the beginning of my incarceration, I began to work with myself to say, well, I need to make amends in the areas that I need to change. And by getting involved in the programs, I needed anger management. I needed substance abuse. I needed to get education through the seminary, where I earned an associate's and a bachelor's degree. I needed to get involved in with the Hispanic communities, since my first language is Spanish. I got involved as a Spanish interpreter and helping the community. But before I was able to help others, I had to help myself. I had to make amends for the wrong that I did and for the crime that I committed. I need to make a change from that because that is not the person that I was. I don't want to be defined by that person, by that act, and by the crime that I committed. I know I'm different. I know I'm better than this. I know I can be better, and I took all the necessary steps that I needed to make to be a better person.
As was expressed to you during your clemency hearing, there is opposition from law enforcement and others. We'll hear from the VA's office a little later, and there's really not a whole lot you can do about that. Tell us, if should you be successful today, what would be your transition plan?
So the plan will be to go to the Parole project, where I'll be able to go through their program, the transition program, and then make the transition to Puerto Rico, San Juan, Puerto Rico, where through the Interstate Compact, where then my family has been provided me with residence and my brother with employment.
In your classes that you were able to take advantage of, did you ever have the opportunity to take a victim awareness class?
Yes, ma'am. We took a victim awareness class. Yes, ma'am.
You had the opportunity to speak to your victim's family. What would you say?
If I can, I would say I sincerely apologize for the pain and anguish my actions have caused. And I regret the day I got involved in drugs. I regret even more so the pain I caused when I took Troy's life. And I am forever sorry for that.
Thank you. I think Mrs. Jackson has some questions.
Ms. Medora, you recognize that you were granted clemency and you probably spoke more about yourself and about your circumstances of clemency hearing than you're doing today. But I will tell you that there are a lot of broken hearts in this room and surrounding the state. A lot of them. So could you explain to them how you came to commit this crime? What was it that would cause you to commit this kind of crime against someone that they love?
Yes, ma'am. And that was an unfortunate situation. I mean, my intentions were never to shoot Troy. I mean, when we got into a very heated argument, very heated, and things became very tense. The tensions were very high. I believe in my heart he reached for his waistline. I instinctively pulled my gun. I shot him multiple times, and I regret that immensely. My intentions were never to shoot Troy.
Your intentions were involved in drug trafficking. So how did that come about?
Yes, ma'am. And I made a terrible decision in getting involved in that. I met someone.
Okay, you know it's a terrible decision. I want to know what led to your even being involved in that lifestyle.
Right. And not long after I came from Puerto Rico and moved to Houston with my family, with my uncle, and then when I started working at the place where my uncle used to work in, I met someone there. I met an individual there where I used to work, and he was involved in drug activity, and he invited me, to get involved, and I made the foolish decision of getting involved in that. Maybe
Why,
thinking, you know, I could.
why do you think you chose to do that? You were working. So what do you think caused you to make that decision?
And I think maybe the money, thinking I could make even more money by, you know, getting involved in that, and not even knowing how much, you know, trouble that was going to cause, how much pain I was going to cause. I not even knowing how it was way over my head.
How old were you? How old were you?
I was about 20 years old.
How did you know Troy?
I'm sorry, ma'am.
How did you know Troy?
I met Troy through my co-defendant, Torres Eccles. He was involved in the drug activity, and I met Troy through Torres Eccles.
What brought you to Baton Rouge that day?
So what brought me back to Baton Rouge was that Troy had we had recruited Troy to move the drugs, and he failed to move some portion of the drugs, and moved to Louisiana. And the reason I came to Louisiana was to deal with the drugs and get the drugs back. The one over the operation, the individual over the operation where the drugs belonged to, he was already suspecting that I had something to do with Troy stealing the drugs, and that was not the case. So I was already receiving threats in that regard, and I had to. My intentions when I came to see Troy were to get the drugs back from him.
You, your co-defendant, and Troy were all involved in this hidden crime.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
You, your co-defendant, and Troy were all involved in this hidden crime. This drug activity, Mr. Medora.
Yes, ma'am.
How long had you known Troy?
I have known Troy for maybe months. I would say maybe 8 months. You know, prior to that.
So you talked about you've done some things to try to make amends.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think the most important thing you've done to try to make amends?
I think the most important thing that I've done has been going through the seminary. Even with all the programming that I took and completed, the seminary kind of brought everything together, because when I came in, I went in there to seek more understanding and how I can better understand the situation. And it gave me, on top of giving me an education and a degree, it equipped me to help others and get involved in the community service and be a part of the community, particularly the Hispanic community, where I was able to serve them as a Spanish interpreter. And through that, I was able to get involved in the Point Lookout project that dealt with giving fellow inmates a proper bureau, where it kind of helped me understand, even give more respect to life. And the Angolite was another big deal for me, where I was able to learn to write in a journalistic way and be able to communicate with people and be able to understand more of the situation and what I have done, and how much pain and anguish I have caused to my family, to the Taggart family, to the community as a whole. And so the seminary kind of brought that in for me, where I was able to understand and make amends in my life.
All right, well, thank you, Mr. Maduro. That's all I have.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Freeman has questions?
Mr. Maduro, what kind of weight were y'all moving? It's like y'all were getting it out of Colombia?
Yes, sir. So the way it was moved, it was through the body. So the person was actually swallowing a certain amount, or however amount they were able to swallow, and then being able to fly from Colombia to the States.
Okay, and have you started your interstate compact yet?
Yes, sir. I've just submitted the application and stuff this week.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Lieutenant, can you tell us anything about Mr. Maduro?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak this morning. I know nothing about who Jaime was when he got incarcerated. All I can tell you about is the man sitting next to me, and he's a joy to be around. He and I have had lots of conversations traveling back and forth to the mansion, talking about his family and how important they are to him. And I just know that when he comes here, everybody's like, oh, Jaime's here. Let's go say hi. Let's go see my boy. And his present job at the mansion is one that requires a great deal of trust. And he's loved by everyone he works with. They enjoy his presence. And I know he's looking forward to being able to not only be back out in society, but to be back with his family and to show them who he is now, not who he was, but the man that he's become.
All right, thank you. We'd like to hear from the Parole Project. Mr. Myers?
Yes, good morning, Kerry Myers, Louisiana Parole Project. I think three things stand out here with Mr. Maduro, and it's trust, sincerity, and remorse. Trust, because he's been trusted in multiple areas and multiple layers since his incarceration. As a Class A trustee, he's had 0 disciplinary reports in his 22 years. His trust as an interpreter for both legal programs and the medical staff at Angola. His trust as a club leader. They needed someone to step forward to help the Hispanic community. They tapped Mr. Maduro to do that. Trust as someone who went into the state police trustee program and now works at the governor's mansion. At every level, Mr. Maduro has exhibited trust. His sincerity is very clear today. Who you see, what you see is the person he is. And his remorse, I can tell you that in his, when he became editor of the Angolite, it was because I needed someone that I could trust to succeed me as editor of the Angolite. And I personally asked Mr. Maduro to take that position because I knew he understood the mission. He understood that it's larger than the person, its mission, and I trusted to take care of that. So in every aspect, I also know personally Mr. Maduro's remorse, and have listened to many times his sincere remorse over his own actions. I believe that he thought that he could make money and not get his hands dirty. And I know now that he knows, after the many conversations with him, that there was nothing clean about what he was doing. And he has done everything since then to try to be the person he knew he should be. And so I'd ask this board that Parole Project will provide him with the support, transitional support he needs. It is 22 years is coming back into a world he's not going to recognize. We will provide him with that transitional support. And there he's going to go to his very loving and caring family in Puerto Rico, where he has employment, where he has housing, and he has a tremendous support system. So I'd ask this board to grant Mr. Maduro his parole today.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We'd like to hear from Ms. Rivera. Your microphone's on mute. Hey.
Good morning. My name is Mirna Rivera, and I am Jaime's mother. And we're today here before you to ask mercy for our son so he can come back home to Puerto Rico. But first, we want to express once again that it has never been our intention to underestimate the victim's family sorrows while we ask for parole for our son. There is no present or future circumstance in our lives that will ever make those past events disappear from our lives. As a former district attorney, I understand the responsibilities of complying with all the parole conditions, and I can assure you that I will help him stay on track. Also, all of us in our family will continue to give him all the support he needs to rebuild a new life out of prison. He will be living with us at our home, where he has his own bedroom. He's going to have a job, and he will go to our church with all of us. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And can we hear from Mr. Jan Maduro?
Yes, I'm Jan Maduro. I am Jaime's youngest brother. I have a boutique firm that focuses on disaster recovery and grant management. I have been a consultant for more than 10 years now. Should he be allowed on parole, Jaime will be hired immediately with us to assist in daily activities related to management and maintenance of the office space that we're operating on right now. He will be working under my supervision directly, and I will coordinate with my parents to track and update the progress that he's had throughout. And I firmly believe that the programs Jaime participated in, the education and mentoring that he partook on, were instrumental in his reform for the past 20 years. And I think that in addition will allow him to perform the duties that we're expecting of him at our office. Thank you.
Now we'll hear from the opposition. And we'll hear from those who are here with us in the room first. So I'll ask for Annette. Ms. Thomas, could you step up to the podium then? And we did receive all of the letters. Thank you so much for submitting that. Do you want? Yes.
It's difficult right now because we went through this thing. And a couple months ago, not a couple months ago, I'm doing it again. I know we hear all the good things that he has done. We hear what his family is going to do. But my brother can't come back here and live his life. I say he's going to live his life. He can't do that. He can't redo his life. When y'all giving him the opportunity to redo his life, I just don't agree with that. And he said that he did not come here to shoot him. You know, when you shoot somebody, you shoot him one time and you think you're done. He shot him 7 times. So we done that 7 times. You had time to stop. So my thing is, you meant to kill him out of anger. Who knows? He's not going to go in Puerto Rico and do the same thing. We don't know that. He said his anger has changed. Of course, if I'm locked up and I didn't have anything to do, yeah, I would go to church. I would get my degree. I would do all that because I don't have the opportunity to do it because I don't have nothing else. But if he was out in public with us, would he have changed his life? Would he have stopped telling drugs? We don't know that. But you have the opportunity to change your life. And so I don't agree because right now, when I go visit my brother, okay, he can go back to Puerto Rico. He can visit his mom. He can visit his mom. My mom can't do that. She can't go visit her son like his mom was going to do. You know, we have to go on plane close to the Winfield funeral to the graveside to visit our brother. Yeah, my brother came home, and the reason he came home was to take care of his elderly grandmother. And if my grandmother was in that house at the time, I believe Jamie would have killed her as well. He didn't want to keep it accepted that he had did what he did. So if you had remorse, if you had any remorse, you would have contacted the family. He has never contacted us. He has never written a letter. He has never said anything that he's sorry. You can say you're sorry now because you want that freedom. You want to be granted that parole, you can say you're sorry now, but you don't feel the ache that we feel every morning when I get up. Yes, it's 20-some years, but you still feel that hurt. I still feel that hurt every day. Now, my niece's daughter is getting married. You don't think you can feel that hurt when he's not there to walk her down the aisle? You think she's not going to feel that hurt? My mom, Dad, is suffering, and we cannot tell her what's going on because I'm thinking that's going to hurt more, make her more sicker than what she did, what she is. So, like I say, thank you for sitting there and say, you went through this, you went through that, you did that. His family can say that they can take care of him. That's good dog. Why? Well, where were y'all 20 years ago when y'all something to take you? Why y'all didn't keep him in Columbia, wherever it was? You'd have kept him there. My brother would have still been alive. Where was you then when you needed your help? You didn't worry about him then, but now you want to see him. You want to see him. You want to see him get out. I don't think he should get out. When we had that clemency, they said he's supposed to spend 23 years before he go to parole. It hasn't been 23 years. It has not. It's only been 22. And like I say, when you're in jail and when you're incarcerated, you're going to do everything you can to get out. And that's what I believe he has done. They claim he's a good person. Yeah, you didn't know who he was back then. I'll be good too to get out.
Ms. Mills,
You know, like
Thomas,
I
can
said,
you wrap
it's
it
just-
up for us so we can hear from your siblings? Can you wrap it up for us so we can also hear from your siblings?
And I don't think he's ready to get out.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Nicole?
Thanks so home. I am Troy's younger sister. If you have to relive it's that tonight, 2000. And my parents say I was senior in high school, sitting in chemistry class, pulled out of office, and was told what happened. Today is my mom's 75th birthday. This is not how I wanted to start the day at all. Bottom line is, he's a murderer. Point blank here. That's it. He changed many lives, not only choice. He's changed the trajectory of several, not included, like I said, I was senior in high school, getting ready to graduate. The DA said it would be best to not travel out to go to college. I stayed in Louisiana because at that time, we had no idea who the murderer was or if it was a collective of murderers. You know? Like she said, his kids are suffering. His family, his siblings, his friends, they're all still suffering. And of course, you know, it's great that he has a support system. Troy would have a support system if he was here. Again, nothing is guaranteed because if it was, we could not be here today. He was sentenced to life, and that should have been it. However, we are here defending my brother who is not able to defend himself because of something that was put in place by the justice system, and they're not holding up to it. So now we have to sit here and represent for him. Because obviously, I just want you all to take that into consideration. I understand what he has done. I just know someone who's trying to regain their life back out into the public is going to do whatever they need to do. And I hope that he sincerely done everything that he did to change his life. And when he gets out, I hope that he continues so he can prove all of these people right.
Ms. Ms. Reed, thank you. Mr. Douglas?
Morning. Gary Douglas, as far as my big brother. My sister stated earlier, today is my mom's birthday today, 75 years old. So this is another day that we got to bring this up again. September 8th is the day. Christmas, birthday. Not my mom's birthday. We gotta live this again. You know, what did we do? You know. Everybody's talking about how well Jamie did, what a great guy he is. Today I can't tell. I see it. I see a guy back against the wall trying to do whatever it takes to get out. You know, his mom, his brother, his family, got all these things set up for him. That's great. You know what I did Sunday? Sunday I went to my mom's house, cut her grass. And left there and was immediately around my brother's grave. That's what I did. And that's all I got. That's as close as I can do for myself. That's all I can do for him at this point. There's always done for me and my family. That's the best I can do. And you know, I don't believe in death penalty. I don't believe in none of that. But I believe if you take a life, you should give up your life, your freedoms, the whole night. You know, I work. I pay taxes. I support the detectives, the police department. They did their job. Everybody did their job. They convicted him of murder. See you later. You shouldn't have to be dealing with this 22 years later. You kill him, you murder, you mess our family up. It's bad. And it's ridiculous. Just don't sense to me. And, you know, and I know they're not pushing it. You know, this reform stuff. I mean, with that, I'm going to get reform too. You know, so they are going to get reform. Get out there and do what you got to do. Come back first, and we live down. I feel it's just that. You know, it's just, you know, it's selfish. You know, drugs, you know, you come on, you can and you drug dealer. This is not have. This is not you know. Hey, with my dog, you know, we just talk about this is a drug dealer. You about some drugs. Do harm in some way. This is not a friendly conversation about drugs.
Mr. Douglas, can you wrap it up for us?
Yes, but you know, like I said, I think this is a bad situation for our whole child family. This is bad memories bringing up, being brought back up, and I just wish the board would deny it because it's not right to all of us. Thank you.
We'll hear from the DA's office. Ms. Cordero.
Thank you, Chairman Renata. Obviously, what y'all have seen this morning is a family that for the past 22 years has dealt with the fact that their loved one is gone. But I believe you're also dealing with the fact that this family has gone from the belief that they received the closure that Mr. Maduro would spend the rest of his life in prison to a clemency hearing in January with a commutation in May. And just 3 short months later, they're facing a parole hearing where his potential release is imminent. And that, I think the board does understand how that is a struggle. I think Mr. Nordyke understands, Mr. Myers. It is a very difficult thing for this family to deal with. As the record shows, we tried this case. Mr. D'Amico afforded Mr. Maduro excellent representation, as I mentioned at his clemency hearing. And I do not recall if there was any plea negotiation in this matter. What I do know is that approaching 22, 23 years in prison, he has served less time than if we had entered into a plea agreement for a term of 40 years pursuant to a manslaughter conviction. If he were to serve 85% of a 40-year sentence, he would still have 34 years to serve. And due to the nature of this homicide, all of the surrounding facts and circumstances, we just humbly submit to this board that this amount of time is not sufficient for Mr. Maduro. We cannot change the past. We cannot bring Mr. Thagard back. I do recognize that Mr. Maduro has done some excellent things while incarcerated. He has done what we wish all inmates would do. However, we just don't believe that it's time for his release just yet. As I mentioned last week in a hearing, just please give this family a little more time to deal with the fact that he will one day be walking the streets, either here or in San Juan. And we respectfully request that his parole be denied today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barbera. So at this time, we'd ask, before we turn it over to Mr. Nordike, we'd ask Mr. Maduro, is there a statement you'd like to make to the parole panel?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to say that I am forever sorry for the crime that I committed. There's not a day that I do not think about what I did that night. And I have done everything I can to be a better person and make better choices and better decisions. And if granted the opportunity to be released today, I hope to be an example to those behind me. And I hope to someone in Puerto Rico with whom I could share my story of redemption. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Nordike.
Thank you. I have several thoughts on this that I would like to share. First, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with regard to Ms. Barbera's comment on if the manslaughter plea had been operative, I think we'd be exactly in the same place, because I think Act 122 would have us at a parole hearing right now anyway, with the amount of time served. So I'm not sure that makes a difference. But the second thing I want to mention is I made some notes at the clemency hearing, and I can't quite figure out to whom the note should be attributed, because the note was between Ms. Jackson's comments and Mr. Roche's comments. But one of the two said, if not you, who? Meaning that the body of work that Jaime Maduro has put forward is probably as prolific and as meaningful as anybody that has come before this panel in a long time. And I have to echo that. With regard to who this man is and what he has done, being a trustee, being an Angolite editor, one thing Mr. Roche did say was that Kerry Myers would have never picked him if it were not for character. So he would not have been editor if not for character. He would not be at the mansion if not for character. So he has been a trustee for the great majority of his incarceration, and he has had zero write-ups, which is an incredibly impressive thing. With all the programs and the attempts to make amends that he has given, I would ask this board to parole him to the Parole Project and then to Puerto Rico. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nordike. All right, here to vote. I'll be voting first. First, I'd like to say I want to thank the members of the faculty family for being here, for participating in the process, both at the clemency hearing and today. I know it is a very painful and traumatic experience for all of you and all the family. I'm sorry today is the day we're doing this on your mother's birthday. I apologize for that scheduling, but you know, we're sitting here today and we're looking at Jaime Maduro and we've reviewed in detail what happened in the crime. Our job is not to retry the case and we accept that, you know, he did what he did. Our job is to look at who the man before us is today. And is there a risk that he would reoffend? In my opinion, and based on the scientific evidence we have, he's a very low risk. I do not believe he's a risk of public safety. He's done everything he could to change, and I believe he has. So my vote today would be to grant his parole. I would add to the interstate compact, first to the parole project and the interstate compact to Puerto Rico. With the only special conditions I would add is that you would have no contact with the victim's family and stay away from Baton Rouge. Jack.
First to the Faggot family. I'm not going to say feel what you feel, but I can see what you're going through, and I know this is not easy. I will tell you that inmates are prohibited from reaching out to victims' families. As a violation of VOC rules, they can't do it. So don't take that to mean that he didn't want to. He's not. Sometimes there's victims more pain when someone reaches out to them in prison because they don't usually know the right things to say. And so I just want you to know that. I know the belief is that everyone in prison works hard to get out. Boy, I wish that were true. I wish that were true. But it's not. But it's not. There are people who had 100 write-ups. There are people who constantly been in and out of lockdown. There are people who sit in programs and get nothing out of it. So I don't want you to think that everyone in prison does what Mr. Maduro. I wish that were true, because our process, our system, and just the outcome for society would be a lot better. But what I also want to say to you is that Mr. Maduro has no right to your forgiveness. He doesn't. But I will tell you that forgiveness is important. It's for you. And I mean that sincerely. I am a person of faith. And I believe that no one is beyond the bridge. If they work like we're not force in the game. Ms. Maduro has worked hard. He's accomplished much. There's not anything else he can do to demonstrate that he's not the 20-something-year-old that he was when he took your loved ones. None of us are who we were at 20. And thanks be to God for that. But when I look at what he's done, what he's accomplished, and the fact that I voted for clemency when it's happening, nothing has changed. And so my vote today, likewise, would be to grant his parole to the weekend parole project, and then to the interstate compact. And I hope with putting an end to this today will be the first step in you all being able to move forward. And that's sincere. Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
The tough case. I mean, 22 years is not a whole lot. 23 years is 1 year away. He has done what he's supposed to do while he's been in jail. But still, he took a life in the process. I do want to thank the victims for showing up You know, I know it's gotta be tough going to your brother's grave and taking care of it. I haven't lost a family member yet beside my parents, and I know that would be very, very tough. But I also am going to vote to grant conditional that he go to Puerto Rico after the parole project, but he not return to the United States unless approved by the parole board. I don't want you going to Puerto Rico and then turning around and coming back here and taking up some old habits. So you remain out of here while you're out of home supervision. Remain in Puerto Rico.
All right, Mr. Maduro, so you've received a favorable vote today, unanimous. Parole has been granted. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
So something that I wanted to now add to this after I watched it, and I think Mr. Freeman had a really great point that, you know, it should at least be 25 years when you take a life, but I think that they were trying to rush it through before the new governor, and that's what they brought up in the prior hearing, and that's why it I think came down to this, because they're not certain the governor would have commuted, and then they had to make parole eligibility, although I don't know why they couldn't have made it that he had parole eligibility after serving a certain number of years. So that's not clear to me. But something that Mr. Freeman asked, he said, how much weight were you carrying? And he never answered the question. You know, weight would have been, were you shipping, you know, how many kilos at a time? But he said, well, we were using the meal process. And it didn't answer the question because it's just saying the method, not how much weight. But hold on one second. So anyways, the meal process, it's what maybe you're already familiar, but it's when someone actually, they send a mule, they call it the mule. They go to the country, and then they put the narcotics in maybe, you know, like condom, like maybe even condoms, I don't know, but they put it in like, and then they swallow it. The mule swallows it. And I was curious, well, how much can a mule even swallow? Like how much can they transport? Like what was the maximum amount of money that this guy could have even brought in is what I'm trying to figure out. And it says here, according to Wikipedia, that they would typically swallow between 50 to 90 capsules, which if you're saying on the maximum of 90, it would be 1.5 kilograms. Then there's an interesting case here about a woman who had swallowed 88 balloons, and they held her for 16 hours at customs so that she would pass it through and they can lock her up. And she sued, saying her rights were violated, that they held her for 16 hours. I guess just on a hunch, and she lost the lawsuit. So, and this is a serious, you know, this stuff is scary. I've seen documentaries on the mules and the process, and man, it is, it's not like you're smuggling the stuff in on a plane, right? I mean, it's pretty intense. Anyone who would volunteer to do that knowingly do it, because in many cases there's a lot of extortion and things in doing it, but you got to be desperate. And then, so I'm okay, well, how much money could it have possibly been? So this actually goes through 2002, what it was in Texas, which is close enough. I mean, he did come from Texas to Louisiana. So he probably was selling it, I think, in Texas, right? And it says that at most it would have been, if it was South American stuff, it would have sold between $60,000 and $70,000 for 1 kilo. So it's not a ton of money. I mean, it's a lot of money, but it's not like a ton of money. And that's the street value. So, you know, we don't know how much he took, how much he's, but it overall, this thing would have gone down for probably not that much money. But anyways, I was just curious. The second aspect that really bothered me about this was how Randy, not Randy, Kerry Myers with the Parole Project said again, and he said it last time, he said, what were the exact words? Something like, he truly didn't believe that he was getting into anything. You know, he didn't understand what he was getting into. He was just thought that he would make some money. And it's like, that's just BS. To send someone a mule to put that stuff in their body and then transport it and then sell it, to say that he didn't know what he was getting himself into. Let's not forget that we're talking about heroin. Like, at the time, this was before fentanyl. This was probably considered the most dangerous, causing, like, I don't know if it was causing the most ODs, but this is the worst stuff. This is like, I mean, it's not like he was smuggling in pounds of weed, right? It was just, it's totally different. So the idea that Kerry would even allude to that is insulting, I think. And not to mention that his mom was an ADA, so, and his father's a great businessman. So this guy was brought up well educated, probably in, you know, like a top 1% kind of lifestyle. So it was quite interesting how kind of those things seem to be just kind of overlooked. Then you have the Miss Renatza, of course, tell 2 of the survivors to wrap it up. And I just can't get how, you know, there's something missing there. How she can just not have any empathy. You know, you could say it differently. It's not that much to say, I am really sorry. We have a strict time limit that we have to adhere to. It's the rules of the parole. We can't give one person more time, one person less time. I'm really sorry, but you have, you know, 30 seconds to finish up. Not wrap it up. Wrap it up. It's like, how dare you? And she does it just consistently. I guess you can give her that. She does it consistently. You know, it's just one of those. It is remarkable, and it was Miss Jackson that said it in the last hearing. I'm pretty sure what Keith, the attorney, was alluding to, which is, if not him, who? And that's a good point. The bottom line is that he has done everything. He is the perfect poster child prisoner. And that's just a good point. If not him, who? Now, I would have argued that it should have been at least 25 years. Also, what was a good point, and it's funny, maybe you thought of it too, or picked it up too, But when Tracy, the DA, said he would have served less time if he had taken a plea deal, and then Keith had to come back with the legal factuality. And I was proud of myself because I picked up on it too. With Act 122, he wouldn't have been serving more time because he would have served more than 20 years and be over the age of 40. So he would have qualified for Act 122. So he would have had a parole hearing anyways. Maybe you picked up on that also. If you did, congratulations. But anyways, you tell me. For me, this is, I would say certainly that he should get parole. It's, but I would have said after 25 years. I don't know if that just wasn't an option in this case. And I say it based on the circumstances of the crime itself and his record. But that's just me. And with that, I'll let you go.